Let's get right into it. Number 6. The yes and you never learned. Improved comedians have this rule, yes, and. Someone says, we're on a spaceship, you don't go, no, we're in a grocery store. You say, yes, and the oxygen is running out. It keeps the scene alive. It builds momentum. Now imagine applying this to regular conversations, except most of us are doing the opposite. Someone shares an idea, and we immediately hit them with, yeah, but, or, actually, or, I don't know about that. We're not trying to be jerks, we're trying to be smart, logical, helpful, but what we're actually doing is killing the conversation before it has a chance to breathe. Psychologist John Gottman, who studies relationships, found that one of the most corrosive conversational habits is the immediate shutdown, the reflexive need to correct, counter, or complicate what someone just said. Your coworker says, we should try a new marketing strategy, and you instantly go, that won't work, because you haven't even heard the full idea yet. But your brain is already in debate mode. You think you're being realistic. They think you're being a conversational wet blanket. The irony is that yes, and doesn't mean you agree with everything. It means you're willing to explore the idea before you murder it. You can still have objections, just maybe let the thought finish forming first. But we don't do that, because our brains are obsessed with being right, with poking holes, with showing we've thought of the problems before anyone else. So we turn every conversation into a game of intellectual whack-a-mole, and then we wonder why people stop sharing ideas around us. Spoiler, it's because you made talking to you feel like a cross-examination. Number 5. The existential terror of names. So, you're at a party, someone walks up, introduces themselves, shakes your hand, says their name clearly, let's say it's David, and approximately 1.4 seconds later, you have absolutely no idea what they just said. You're nodding, you're smiling. Internally, you're screaming because you've already forgotten whether they said David, Daniel, or possibly Devin. Congratulations. You've just experienced what psychologists call encoding failure, which is a fancy way of saying your brain decided this information wasn't important enough to move from short-term to long-term storage. Here's the thing, your brain wasn't being rude, it was overwhelmed. When you meet someone new, you're processing their face, their handshake firmness, whether they have food in their teeth, the volume of the music, and, oh right, also their name. Neuroscientist Dr. Charan Ranganath explains that your working memory can only hold about 4 chunks of information at once, and David is competing with, is my shirt tucked in weird, and should I make a joke about the dip? Spoiler, the name loses. The actual social skill here isn't having a good memory, it's admitting you forgot. But we don't do that, do we? Instead, we spend the next 40 minutes doing linguistic gymnastics to avoid using their name, calling them, dude, my friend, or just pointing. We'd rather risk looking like we have early onset amnesia than admit we weren't paying attention for 2 seconds. Which is ironic, because the other person, they also forgot your name. You're both just playing chicken with pronouns. Number 4. Knowing when to shut up. Silence is terrifying to the average human. The moment there's a pause, people panic like the conversation is a sinking ship. Suddenly someone blurts out, so, weather exists. But knowing when to stop talking is one of the most ignored skills. Socially skilled people understand that silence isn't failure, it's space. It's the breathing room where meaning actually lands. Your brain, however, hates silence because it interprets it as rejection. Evolutionarily, being ignored meant being excluded, and being excluded meant dying alone in the wilderness. So now, in modern life, your nervous system treats a 3-second pause like a life-or-death emergency. The result? Nervous oversharing, endless rambling, jokes that don't need to happen. Sometimes the best social move is to stop. Let the moment sit. Let the other person respond. Conversations aren't supposed to be verbal marathons. Basically, silence is not an enemy. Your mouth just thinks it is. Number 3. Listening to respond versus listening to reload. Picture this. Your friend is telling you about their horrible day. Their car broke down, they spilled coffee on their shirt, their boss yelled at them, and while they're mid-sentence about the boss thing, you're not listening anymore. You're locked and loaded with your own story about the time your boss did something way worse. You're just waiting for them to take a breath so you can swoop in with, oh my god, that reminds me of. This is called conversational narcissism, and sociologist Charles Derber basically wrote the book on it. It's not that you're a terrible person, it's that your brain loves patterns and relevance. When someone shares a story, your mind immediately starts fishing for a similar experience, because that's how humans bond, right? Shared experiences? Except there's a difference between relating and hijacking. Relating would be listening to the whole story, acknowledging their feelings, and then maybe sharing your thing if it's actually relevant. Hijacking is when you treat their story like a launchpad for your own greatest hits album. And we all do this. It's autopilot. Someone says they're tired, you're tireder. They went on a trip, you went on a better trip. They're stressed about work, and suddenly you're delivering a TED Talk about your own stress levels. The irony? You think you're connecting, they think you're not listening. What you're actually doing is playing conversational tennis, except you keep spiking the ball into their face and calling it a rally. Number 2, the compliment that lands like a grenade. You want to be nice. You see someone, and you think, I should say something positive, so you go with, wow, you look so much better than usual, end quote. Or maybe, you're actually pretty smart for someone who, and then you watch in real time as their face does this micro-expression journey from hopeful to confused to mildly offended. Congratulations, you've just delivered what psychologists call a backhanded compliment, which is basically a compliment that packed an insult in its carry-on luggage. Here's the thing, your brain genuinely thought it was being nice. You were trying to emphasize the compliment part, the better, the smart, but you accidentally included a comparison that implies a terrible baseline. You look great today suggests that yesterday you looked like a swamp creature who lost a fight with a lawnmower. You're so articulate. Can sound like, I'm shocked you can form sentences. The intention was pure. The execution was a disaster. This happens because we're terrible at hearing our own words the way others hear them. Linguist Deborah Tannen calls this meta-messages, the hidden meaning beneath what we actually say. You think you're saying, I'm impressed by your improvement. They hear, you used to be a disaster, but look at you now, almost functional. And the worst part? You can't really fix it once it's out there. Trying to explain just makes it worse. No, I meant you normally look fine, but today you look, stop, you're digging. You've gone from compliment to crater. Just apologize and move on, before you accidentally insult their posture too. Number 1. Interrupting to show you're engaged, but actually being the worst. Some people interrupt because they're excited. They hear something that sparks a thought, and they jump in mid-sentence with enthusiasm, thinking they're contributing to this vibrant, energetic conversation. They think they're being collaborative, building on ideas, showing they're fully present. Meanwhile, the person they interrupted is standing there, sentence unfinished, watching their point evaporate into the void like it never mattered. Research from communication experts shows that chronic interrupters genuinely don't realize they're doing it. Their brain is moving faster than social convention allows, and they've convinced themselves that interjecting shows engagement. I'm so interested that I can't wait. Except that's not how it reads to the other person. To them it reads as, what I have to say is more important than whatever you're currently saying. It's a dominance move, dressed up as enthusiasm. And here's the kicker. In some cultures and families, interrupting is normal. It's how conversations work, fast-paced, overlapping, chaotic. But when you bring that energy into a context where people expect turn-taking, you come across like a conversational bulldozer. The other person isn't thinking, wow, they're so passionate. They're thinking, am I even here? You're essentially playing jazz when they showed up for a book club. The skill isn't eliminating interruptions entirely, it's reading the room and knowing when your interruption is adding to the vibe versus steamrolling someone's attempt to exist in the conversation. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.